Hey, this is CANDIA RAQUEL, founder of Centro de Poder, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that is completely free from inhibition. And if you haven't already, please go to www.centrodepoder.com and get the free guide to awaken sensuality. Today, we have a very special guest. This is Vivien Schapera. She's a Alexander technique teacher, and she's also an expert with crystals. Welcome, Vivien. Such a pleasure to have you here.
CANDIA, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel honored. I feel glad to be here. Really pleased to get this opportunity to speak about what I do.
I'm very happy to talk to you too, and very curious about how did you make this integration with Alexander technique and the crystals? Like, how does it come to be something that you can embody together? Because Alexander technique is about anatomy and etc. and alignment, and the crystals are, I would say, plainly rocks, but there's more to crystals. So what can you tell us about your background, which is very interesting to me?
Well, the Alexander technique, in a way, came first, in a way, didn't. When I was 10 years old, I encountered crystals for the first time, and it was an extremely sensual experience for me because I was a little girl. I was only 10 years old, and we were visiting Namibia. It used to be called Southwest Africa, but my father was born there in a very small town called Keetmanshoop, and we went to visit his former next-door neighbor, and his name was Carl Vurt, and we walked through his house, and when we got to the back door, which was through the kitchen, the door opened, and there in the backyard, which was completely desert, were these beautiful glowing pink rocks. I mean, big rocks of rose quartz. Wow. And that was my very first encounter with the mineral kingdom in that kind of way, where there was just this power and this energy. And it was an extremely sensual experience when a girl of 10 is very, very susceptible to pink, and rose quartz is pink. And so there I was just transfixed by these gorgeous rose quartz rocks that had been built into a rockery, and there were plants and little succulents planted in between the rose quartz rocks. And I just took one look at that, and that was it. I turned to my dad and I said, one day I will collect crystals. And my dad said, that's an expensive hobby, which I think is kind of funny. But he was right. It is an expensive hobby. So in a way, crystals came first. I'd only heard about the Alexander technique when I was 20 years old, is when I discovered the Alexander technique. But I had been looking for it for a long time because I had terrible, terrible posture as a child. My posture was so bad that people in the street walking past me would say, stand up straight, girly, because that's how bad my posture was. And everybody would comment on it, not to be unkind. They were trying to be kind to me. They were trying to be helpful. But that's not a very helpful thing to hear, is people telling you to stand up straight, because those of us who've studied the Alexander technique know how complex standing up straight actually is. And it's not something you can just do because you're trying to do it. In fact, trying is going to be an issue. So I was looking for the Alexander technique from a young age, probably 12, 13, 14 years old. I was looking for it. And one day in school, when I was 16 years old, I'm sitting in school and I'm looking around and I'm looking at everybody and I'm going, I'm not the only one with bad posture. This is bad. I'm looking at everybody slumped in their desks, looking exhausted and fatigued. Their legs in funny positions, their bodies all twisted up. Sitting in desks all day long at school, hardly the best thing for our physical bodies. But I sat there, I was 16 years old, and I looked around me and I went, there's got to be something somewhere in the world that can help with this. And it was a thought that crossed my mind. And what I didn't know is that the one and only Alexander teacher in Cape Town, South Africa, was right across the road from me. Where my high school was, and the one and only Alexander teacher in Cape Town, South Africa, who was actually also the one and only teacher in all of South Africa at that time, she was just across the road from my high school.
Wow.
Which is very weird. It's very weird, but I only found out about it later when I was 20. So it took from age 16, having that thought, to age 20, when I discovered there is a thing and it can help me. And that's when I began my Alexander lessons. So technically, I started studying the Alexander technique before I began looking into crystals, even though they had already implanted themselves in my mind. I'm sorry, you seem to want to ask a question.
Yes, yeah, they implanted themselves in your mind before. I can get a sense of that wondrous awe of walking into a rose quartz palace, almost like I imagine like a backyard that was actually like a natural museum, and the surprise that you were not expecting that. And I have seen in Mexican caves the stalactites or stalagmites and the amethyst purple quartz.
Yes.
And I think I never consciously thought about it. I mean, I have had the experience, but now I feel in my body what I felt, and I imagine what you felt, and it's an experience of magnificence.
It is. It really is. And I think it's very important to understand that we as human beings, we're part of the animal kingdom, and we depend upon the plant kingdom in ways that we're very familiar with. We very much understand that we are interacting with the plant kingdom. The plant kingdom provides us with food. The plant kingdom provides us with medicine. The plant kingdom provides us with pleasure in the form of aromatherapy oils and fragrances and beauty. The plant kingdom does so much for us, including keeping our oxygen going.
Yes.
But see, we are equally dependent and interacting with the mineral kingdom. Our bodies need minerals just as much as we need plants. Okay, trace elements, but without those trace elements, we are nothing. For example, iron. We are nothing without iron. We could not survive without these minerals. And we are very dependent on the mineral kingdom because we are using it in our industry, in our technology, all over the place, and specifically crystals, especially our digital technology, but also in our medical technology. For instance, a laser that is used for laser surgery. It requires a ruby of very specific dimension and a metal tube that is very specifically constructed with very specific dimensions. And that's how a laser surgery instrument is built. And that's since the 1960s. Our pacemakers in our hearts, it requires quartz, the same as our watch. It's a quartz watch because it's got quartz in it. And the quartz is very good at keeping the rhythm and the pace. We are dependent on crystals and the mineral kingdom in ways that we don't even know and understand. We're much more familiar with the ways in which we depend upon the plant kingdom and interact. It's a symbiosis, isn't it? We're all working with each other in order to have this life here on Earth. And I just feel extraordinarily fortunate that I have been exposed so richly to the mineral kingdom and what else it has to offer besides the technological aspects and the sort of more industrial aspects like steel. I mean, that's the mineral kingdom. But I get to work with the crystals in a completely different way, and that is for health, mind expansion, healing, and so on. And it's an extraordinary pleasure that I get from being able to do this. I think often about being that 10-year-old girl and seeing the rose quartz and just knowing in that moment, this is very significant. This is about my life. This is truly wonderful. Now, the same thing happened when I heard about the Alexander technique. I was at the swimming pool. I was sitting next to my boyfriend of the time. His sister had come from London to visit a family in Cape Town, South Africa. And she's just casually remarked to me, she said, I just came from a posture lesson. And it was like, oh, what I've been looking for. And I just went to, tell me what you're talking about. She said, well, it's actually called the Alexander technique. There's one teacher here. Her name is Joyce Roberts. She's in Rondebosch, which is where my high school was. And she gave me the details. And I want to tell you something. It was so compelling for me. I just knew I got that same click. This is it. This is the thing I've been looking for. And I made the very first phone call of my life. I have a terrible telephone phobia, and I could hardly ever make a phone call when I was a child and also a young adult. And this was the very, very first phone call of that nature that I made. Before that, I'd only ever phoned a friend. And this was like a more formal business kind of a thing. And I actually picked up the phone and called Joyce Roberts and asked her for an Alexander lesson. It was, the Alexander technique was that for me. It was a breakthrough, one after the other, beginning with doing something I wasn't previously able to do, which is exactly what the Alexander technique is about. It's about being able to inhibit, which means stop, all that chatter and noise that prevents you from functioning clearly. I was able to do it, to make that phone call. So my first Alexander lesson happened in the process of making the appointment for my first Alexander lesson. Isn't that neat? And so I went to see Joyce, and I totally fell in love with the Alexander technique because CANDIA, your program is about sensuousness. I couldn't be touched. I was so tense and I had so much pain in my body that if anybody touched me, I would jump sky high. It would hurt me so much, particularly here in this area of my body. It would be so painful if somebody touched me that I would literally jump. And it would just hurt so much. But the Alexander technique, the touch in the Alexander technique is so different and so remarkable that this I was able to experience and allow. And it was just so amazing, CANDIA. The Joyce Roberts, she'd take my arm and she'd just hold it, and it would feel like something inside me was unwinding. It was an extraordinary experience for me. I was such a tense person and so wound up. And to find the thing that was going to lengthen me out and unwind that tension and actually give me back an experience of being in my body without it hurting all the time. And I was athletic. It's not like I didn't have good coordination. I was very athletic and I was able to do a lot of athletic things. But of course, when that's coupled with tension, it just makes you worse because your muscles just wind up more and more and more, and you get more and more tight and muscle bound. That's the word that gets used. And so for me to discover the Alexander technique and that there was a process that could reverse what had been happening in me since I was a little girl, oh gosh, oh my God. It was a door opener. But it was more than a door opener for me, the Alexander technique. It opened a door to a hallway of many doorways. And I was able to choose which other doorways I would like to go through next. Because to me, that's what the Alexander technique is. It's all about possibility. And everybody has a different way of applying the Alexander technique in their lives. It's a basis for living. It is not a thing in itself. And that's why I can use the Alexander technique and combine it, like other Alexander teachers will combine it with singing instruction or swimming instruction or how to use your eyes and better. and all kinds of specialties in the Alexander world. Well, my specialty is to take the Alexander technique, use it as a platform, and add crystal healing on top of that. I apply what I know about the Alexander technique to opening up the world of crystal healing.
Yes, I love what you
I talked a lot, didn't I?
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. I love how you say that the Alexander technique is a basis for life. So it's a door that opens a hallway of many other doors and possibilities.
Yes.
And it's so revealing, the fact that you were so tense and wound up, though athletic, that you couldn't stand touch in your shoulders because the level of pain it would trigger. So yes, it's possible to be that tense, even though you may be in pretty good shape and very young and like in a great state. Like it's
yes, strong and fit. Strong and fit and tense and sore.
Yeah,
and of course it's there's a name for it. They call it fibromyalgia. When you store your psychological tension in your body, when you somatize your pain and tension, and mental tension in your body, then you that's one of the fibromyalgia syndromes. And there's a name for it, and that's what I had. And I still have to take care, That's the kind of constitution that I have. I will somatize my experience. If I'm tense, I will get a tension headache. I won't feel tense in an identifiable way. I will get a tension headache. Then I know, a tension headache. I am tense. I better pay attention to that. And that's just the way I'm made. And many people are made that way. I'm not the only one.
Yes. Letting the body have the last word. Like if you want to know how you're doing, don't look at the mirror, sense yourself. And something key that you said is that trying is going to be an issue. Like even trying to fix something, it can be detrimental, because not that it's bad to have a good intention, taking responsibility for oneself, but that the approach of trying, it's not enough, to say the least.
And trying is a separation from doing something. In this instance, the use of the word try.
Yes,
so trying. If I want to use the word try in the regular sense, I'll use the word attempt. Let's attempt to do that, or let's see, or let's experiment and see what happens. So I use a different word from try. The word try in the Alexander technique, we're talking about the association of effort, where you try and try to do something. And apparently, because Walter Carrington, I'm quoting something I remember from Walter Carrington, but I've never been able to find this as an actual quote from Alexander. But what Walter Carrington told me was that Alexander said, if at first you don't succeed, for heaven's sakes, don't try again. In other words, don't do the same thing expecting a different result. Wow. If you've got to think it through, you've got to figure out the means whereby, is what we say in the Alexander technique. You've got to go back, and really what you want is to, it's the Zen thing. You've got to be it, not try to be it. And so if you want to go down the road, you go down the road. You don't think about trying to go down the road or sort of try to go down the road. No, you got to go down the road to go down the road. It's just that not separating from the actual thing that you want to be doing or experimenting or attempting, by putting effort and trying as it becomes almost a barrier, and it becomes different from what you're actually wanting.
Yes, I remember this beat poet Bukowski that had a poem that has like at the center, like, don't try. Like, if you're gonna go all the way, and then you learn. Like, if you went all the way and it didn't work, like, by all things holy, don't do that again, because you already know that series of steps are not taking you where you want. And then comes inhibition, that you mentioned that inhibition is inhibiting the noise that keeps you. So in a way, like I am I am having like 25 miraculous realizations right now, because yes, when you're trying, it's like you want to be safe, and at the same time you want to be really, like, you want to get a mild satisfaction as if you had done the action, but you want to have the comfort of not risking doing that. And so you're not either, you have one foot in the door, but you cannot do that when if you want to go on an airplane. Like if you want to fly to the other side of the ocean, you have to get into the airplane and go. Otherwise,
yes.
like don't try.
You have to commit. You have to commit, and you have to take the risk.
You have to commit.
Taking risks, very, very important.
Yeah. And I get a sense of like the self-integrating in that precise moment of taking the risk, and in the actual doing of the action, like the part of the self that is more elusive, the mind or consciousness or awareness or whatever we call it, that wants something and has the energy to do that, but that's not enough. You have to put the body, like embody yourself to act physically, and then it's like this powerful like embodiment, oneness, that is our natural state. But
yes,
we have this wedge in between of trying and thinking and then overthinking that leads you to fibromyalgia, to say the least, or to say the worst, to an extremely unfulfilled life. And
yes.
the thing is that maybe many of us, we don't take the risks because we feel the stakes are too high. But then you mentioned something about Alexander, that he said that you have to come back, way back, and really be aware of all the micro series of steps that will lead you to that point. So one would say, no, I want to have like a super fit body. So they went on a boot camp to train 4 hours a day with the exercises of the Marines, and they end up with I don't know, an herniated disc, because they didn't follow the step-by-step process that a regular Marine took for 4 years prior getting into that training. And I feel that there's a huge blind spot in our culture of achievement, exactly there, of being obsessed with the goal and not equally obsessed with the process. That is the only way, not to have a guarantee, but it's the only way that you can aim in a real way to whatever goal you want to achieve. So we have like this cross motivation, that you're more motivated for losing weight or to finding your soulmate, or to even to heal. Can be we can get obsessed with healing more than we are engaged in being involved in the moment by moment, coming closer to the realization. And here comes my next question about what happens when we try to be sensual.
Is that the question? What happens when
we like what
try to be sensual?
Yeah,
I think it's a very strange thing to try to be sensual, because we either are being sensual or we aren't. So I wouldn't consider myself a sensual person. Well, let me put it this way. The first time I came across the term sensuous and the the new ethic of being sensual as opposed to sexual was actually when I was a teenager, and it was a magazine article in the South African magazine, and sort of said, this is the higher standard, to be sensual. So of course, all 16 years old of me or whatever, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, I'll never make it to that. I'm not a sensual person. Well, that's just not true. I am a very, very sensual person. I enjoy my senses to the point where I've decided, in my personal opinion, is that the reason we're here on Earth in physical bodies is to experience the 5 senses, plus there are some other senses, like we know as Alexander teaches. There's the kinesthetic sense, which is what the Alexander technique teaches us to enliven. And then there's psychic senses as well. And I think that other disciplines also talk about, I know they talk about the felt sense, where it's that feeling that you get. It's a sense of something else that's not in words yet. And that's called the felt sense. So there are other senses beyond the 5 senses. But let's just talk about the 5 senses. We're here to appreciate the 5 senses. When we are in a physical body, we have, if everything is intact, because some people it's not all intact, we have these 5 senses, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that is what we are here for. We are here for that experience. Otherwise, we can just stay out of a physical human body or any kind of physical body. We can stay out of that and just be points of consciousness.
Yes.
So then what else is the human body for but to have all these senses? And therefore we must have these experiences. And it was a breakthrough in my thinking when I realized, and I started to enjoy my food more. Instead of all this dieting and I need to be thin thing, I went, oh, no, I'm here to enjoy my senses. And if tomorrow I were, God forbid, to die, which would be more important? That I had a delicious meal or that I cut down on my calories? I think the delicious meal is more important. Yeah. And so I honor those 5 senses every day now in what I do. And I appreciate those 5 senses in everything that I do. And I encourage my clients and my students and everyone to understand this perspective more and more and more, because life is hard. It is really hard. We have so many difficult things to navigate in our life, but we have been given the 5 senses so that we can enjoy ourselves. And we must learn to do that to the max, is my belief.
Yes, enjoy our senses. That's why we are here. And I get a sense that one enjoys in the senses, in the act, not in the trying. Like, you cannot try to eat a chocolate.
That's right. That's right. It's the actual experience. The actual experience is what counts. And I ask myself all the time now, am I enjoying this? And if I'm doing something that I'm not enjoying, I was reading a book. It was really a good book. You know what? I wasn't enjoying it. It was making me feel anxious while I was reading it. So I noticed I wasn't like reading in the evenings, which I generally like to do. And I thought, why aren't I reading? I was like, I don't like that book, but I know it's a good book. And it was quite funny and amusing and had very good ideas in it. But you know what? The actual experience of reading the book was making me tense and agitated. And I thought, then just don't. Why would I read a book if it's making me tense and agitated? There's enough in life to make me tense and agitated without adding in this book. So fortunately, the library took the book back out of my iPad.
They helped.
On the due date.
There's an important point here, because like rationally, it makes sense to read the book because it's entertaining, amusing, and it may have helpful information that could be useful in the future. And that's like one of the voices of the trying that are ingrained in the discourse. And then we bypass the irrefutable truth of our body. Like if you're eating a rotten apple, like you better spit it out, no matter what
Yes.
mind or the general screams to you. Like it's gonna be bad for you, even if you swallow and you want to be super stoic, it's gonna be bad for you no matter what. So it's so important to take back the ownership of our truth at a fleshly level. Like Martha Graham said, the body doesn't lie. Like it's like either you fall in love or you are not in love with the guy. Like maybe you could fake it, but in your body, like we know stuff. And I believe that sensuality is about this deep knowledge, and it's about this baseline of health and this wisdom for going on living, especially because this embodiment where sensuality, where the pleasure of sensing happen, it's in the action, not in the trying. And I like a lot also to get like a sense of the inhibition, that inhibition, it's like I am not, it's okay if you're not going for it. So be clear, like I am not trying, like I am keeping this for myself, and then I can go action, little action, little action, little action. So I believe that this is so important, but because it's very easy to go into Instagram or TikTok or national TV and see these gorgeous Hollywood models moving very sumptuous. But if you look at them, like I have an example. I have this pile of Vogue magazines. Like I have, for the people that is only listening, I have a floor to ceiling pile of Vogue magazines because I am a huge fan and admirer of fashion and also of models. So it was a huge shock to watch the first catwalks that I watched on YouTube back in the day, because it didn't match how the models looked walking than how they looked on the picture on that same catwalk. Like they look gorgeous in the pictures because they are, I mean, when you're taking a picture, we look like different than reality because we are three-dimensional and a picture is two-dimensional. But when I saw them walking, like most of them on the verge of anorexia, like even to walk, especially on high heels, you need muscles. Like you need something to carry your weight forward. And my impression was that they were not having a good time. And then I learned that most of them were alcoholics and high on amphetamines and cocaine. So they could keep on going with the crazy rhythm of Fashion Week. So we are sold something that is an image, a projection, that is not rooted in the reality of the experience. Like these ladies from the magazines, most of them are unhealthy, and what we are sold as the image of pleasure is only like the face of trying, like a pretense, not an action.
Mm-hmm. Because it's an illusion. It's an illusion, and it's a very carefully created illusion. And it's very troublesome. But I have a funny story to tell in alignment with that. And that is that I used to do taekwondo, and I was actually the coach, and I ended up at quite a number of taekwondo tournaments. And one year, the taekwondo tournament was together with the Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding competition. And we arrived, this was in Columbus, Ohio. And so we arrived at the convention center, and there were all these incredible looking women walking around. And we didn't know what was going on. We there we were in our taekwondo uniforms and everything. And then there were these unbelievably gorgeous women, all looking perfect in their own way. strutting around. Well, it was the bodybuilding competition. And so they'd all had, I don't know how much plastic surgery in order to achieve this perfect look. And at first, the men were very interested in these women. They looked like Stepford Wives. That was a movie where the men were turning their wives into robots that looked like them. And that's what these women looked like. They looked like perfected versions of themselves. And they were all in the ladies' cloakrooms doing their hair and doing their makeup. And it was just unbelievable to see this. By the end of the day, the men did not want to look at another plastic woman. And we ordinary looking taekwondo women were without makeup and without, any of the accoutrement that these women had. We were getting the smiles of approval from the men, not the women who'd had all the plastic surgery. It was a remarkable experience, all compacted into this one day. I'll just never forget it. And ever since then, I just think natural, organic, and sensuous is the key, not this weird illusion of perfection.
Yes, natural, organic, and sensuous is the key, because I feel that what is attractive, what is the sex appeal, is what the other person lets you see, like you can see through the experience that they have of themselves. Like for a guy, like, if this taekwondoin, she's so comfortable with herself, with her body, like she's having a good, she is her own clubhouse. Like she doesn't need me, she doesn't need makeup, she doesn't need anything. She's having a great time. Like I want to know what is that about. Like you invite me to your private party with yourself, and because putting so much stuff on, first and foremost, is a message that the person is very interested on the glance of the other, on the approval of the other.
Yes.
So then it's also like giving away your power. Of course, there are women that they are masters in the art of embellishment because it pleases them, and you can tell when the lady is walking in the high heels and like with a Cuban super huge ass and the mini skirt, and like she's doing it for her, and that is very sexy. But if one falls precisely into the bodybuilding competition, then you're competing for approval upon something that is so intimate and it's so yours that it's not for to be given away. Because that's when we give away not only our self-esteem and our power, but our
That's right.
Because feminine deodorants and feminine razors are 3 times more expensive than the ones for the guy. I just buy the ones for the guys and without all to make it even. But this is the point. Like this is the trying versus the acting, and especially the being sensual.
Yes.
Like being in the experience of yourself and delighting in no matter what. And of course it takes like this like gentle boundary of I am already this way, and I may put the high heels, the lashes, the huge nails, and the fillers and the plastic surgery, but at the end it's myself. Like, and that's the difference. Like if you can get to a basic level of acceptance and maybe of self-love, to welcome the living experience that is the fleshly pleasure. And here comes my next question about crystals. Are crystals sensual? And this is like a open word question.
Yes. The experience of crystals is very sensual. Firstly, people are very attracted to crystals because they're beautiful. And they're beautiful for two reasons. One is they look beautiful. Let's find a pretty crystal here. There's a nice one. Okay. So they look beautiful. So that's sensual, just the way they look. And some people only collect them because of what they look like. But then they also feel amazing. So this is orange calcite. It's an orange calcite sphere. And if I rub it on my body like this, oh, it's very deeply relaxing. And the particular property of the orange calcite is that it's emotionally balancing. So when I'm rubbing this crystal on my body, it is also balancing me emotionally, which is a very, very nice feeling. And a very expansive feeling. You know, the moment we begin to relax and we kind of begin to expand our awareness and we expand our sensuality when we relax, then crystals are very, very helpful in getting us to relax. So this, you can hear me, my voice is changing because I'm kind of inducing a trance in myself with this, you know, you go ahead and interview me, but I'm going to just enjoy.
I am thinking of the glass could have glass is sand, but that's the only. I think I have a rose quartz. Can you tell us something about rose quartz while I go running to grab my rose quartz in my wallet?
Okay, I'll tell you about rose quartz. I'll even hold up a rose quartz. I'll entertain everybody. I have a rose quartz skull here. Isn't that nice? That's beautiful.
Well,
and rose quartz is a very, very helpful stone. It helps with everything from grief and anxiety and depression to feeling uplifted. So it gives a full range of experiences. And the pink color is very pretty. It's very hard to photograph rose quartz. It comes out gray. It gets a gray tone in the photographs. I've discussed this with various photographers and various mineral dealers. But in real life, the color of rose quartz, the soft color, it's just so soft. It's very supportive to the heart. Pink is a heart color, and it's very expansive for the heart. So that's just some of the features of rose quartz. And I used to think it was a beginner stone because it's is often the first stone that people will have, and one of the first stones that will attract people. But actually, it's a master stone as well. There's just no question that there is a lot of mastery in rose quartz. So that's a quick intro to rose quartz. Each of these things I could speak for a year about. Yes. That I will admit.
I didn't find my rose crystal. It should be on my wallet, but it's not. Well, I have this that is glass. Would it work? Well, I don't know what it is.
The big quartz sphere, is it glass or is it quartz?
I don't know.
I can't tell.
It fell. I think, I don't know.
It's very big. It depends what you paid for it, whether it's glass or quartz. So
it's a gift from my mom, and it was very expensive.
Then it's a crystal sphere. You won't get it. They won't make a big glass sphere like that, and sell it for a lot of money. But no, that's amazing. It's very clear. Can you hold it up for me again? I just, if you talk, then I will be able to see it. Yeah. Now that's what people use, as a crystal ball for seeing the future. And I'm not that good with a clear one. I can see a lot if it's not clear, but that's a beautiful piece. It's very big though. It's too heavy to work with. You have to rest it and look at it and use it as a tool for focusing your mind and your consciousness, and it will work. You just have to breathe. It would work for focusing your mind and your consciousness. Yeah.
I have never used it. Well, I think this is the first time I am seriously seeing it.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
So I cannot help but asking, how can I see the future?
How can you see the future? Well, if you put that stone down on your desk, on your workspace, and you just stare into it, and then you either wait for images to appear in the crystal itself, or you wait for the images as stimulated by the exercise to appear on what I call the mind screen. So many people that see the future or see energetic information, they're seeing it on the mind screen. So they're seeing it in on a screen in their mind. Do you have one? Do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the mind screen? Do you visualize things in your mind?
Yes, like imaginary, and also I have
Yes,
like deliberate imaginary. Like I imagine that my tension is melting like butter on top of a hot cake, and also
yes,
I have imaginary that is
yes.
sometimes like a vision.
Right. So that's
Like
the mind screen in operation, and you use it for imagination, you use it for visualizing. And if you can visualize something that you wanting to have happen, it won't happen unless it can happen or is happening. So that's one of the techniques that I use in my energy healing and crystal healing work, is to engage the mind screen. With your crystal sphere, what you can do is wait and see whether you actually see images in the sphere itself, or whether it stimulates the seeing of imagery on your mind screen. Both are equally accurate, effective ways to go about it. I personally like to see it on the mind screen. I'm more comfortable with that. I don't like to see ghosts and spirits and entities out there in as if they're physically in the world. It's happened a few times. I'm not comfortable with it. I much prefer the mind screen experience. But with crystals, I can get it both ways. I can actually see the imagery as if the crystal is the screen and showing me the images, or it will stimulate the images on the mind screen. So for you, I would suggest that you will want to see what you start to think about, where your mind drifts to, what you start to imagine. But I do want to say that seeing the future is not actually very desirable. When we see the future, we're only getting a glimpse. It's like looking at a house through the window. You can go up to the window and you can look in through the window in the house, but you're very limited. You're still not in the house. You're only looking into the house, and you also can't see everything. You're only seeing some of it. So it's not going to make correct sense. And I think seeing the future can be scary. Will I look into the future on behalf of people? If it's for healing purposes, yes. If a person is in a terrible state of fear, I will look and see, do you really need to be this scared or not? And so on. But I do not think that knowing our future and seeing the future is necessarily constructive. There are points that are constructive to know about, but if you think that about what it would be if you knew the future, how many things you wouldn't do. And you still can't avoid the future. The future has to be allowed to happen. And look, I know about this from personal experience. I used to be so worried that something would happen to a child of mine. So I have two sons, Aiden and Jason. I was so scared that something would happen to them. So I looked into the future, and I saw them at age 18, age 20, age 23, 24. I got to age 25, and my spirit guide said, "That's enough now. Are you satisfied?" I said, "Yes, I'm satisfied." Well, Aiden died at the age of 26. I am so glad I didn't know that was going to happen. I always knew something was going to happen to him. I always knew that from before he was born. I didn't even buy baby clothes for him because I knew something was going to happen to him, and I was scared he wouldn't be born alive or he'd die soon after birth. But it didn't happen then. And then I carried that fear. So I was shown the future, and the guide said, "Is that enough now?" at age 25. And he died at the age of 26. And I'm glad I didn't know. And I'm glad that I looked and saw him alive up to age 25, and I enjoyed every single minute of it.
Yes. And I am about to cry almost, because
it is. It's a hard one, isn't it? It really is.
This is a secret, a wisdom for living life, like
yes.
to live life at its fullest, because it's what we were saying about the difference of trying and doing. Like,
yes,
actually, we already know what the future is.
Yes, that's right.
There's a line over there, hopefully very far away. We already know. And it is in the how we live our lives that is meaningful. It is
that's
what I've been talking about, the journey, the savoring, the delighting, the why I'm not gonna delight in this delicious dinner instead of counting the calories. So this is about sensuality. It's about being in the now, and like also like giving the gift fully. Like you enjoyed every second with your son, and you shared your life with his life as far and as long as it was possible. And that is a lesson for life for all of us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Not losing ourselves in the trying, in the thinking, and in the
future. We're here now. This is it. This is it. Now is it.
Yeah. And we might see the future, but we can only live in the present. Like sensual pleasure only exists in the now. Pleasure only exists in the now. Life it's now. And that is from where everything keeps on streaming from, like action, movement. And yeah, I feel that's the key, like the being as movement, being in movement, and acting.
I agree.
We agree. This is touching and interesting. So we already know how to see the future with Essentialist. Thanks to your acute guidance and also warning. So my question now is, we can see the future. Now, how can we come to our senses in the present? Say, if we are in this state of so much mental overwhelm, distraction, getting ourselves to a point of being tied up and tensed and ill and having fibromyalgia, how can we come to our senses in the now?
I think that if we need help with that, we must get the right help. And of course, the Alexander technique is one of the best ways to get that help. But because it is a user's manual for your body, is what the Alexander technique actually is, even though it's really no separation between body and mind in the Alexander technique, it is still here on earth. We have a physical body, and the Alexander technique gives us a user's manual for that being a physical being, and how to actually truly integrate instead of having the duality of body and mind. Now, of course, the English language is very, very frustrating. It doesn't have a word for body-mind unity. We either have to refer to the physical body, or we have to say the mind, or we have to say the body-mind, or we have to say we don't have this duality. We don't have a word for it. How weird is that? I think about that very, very often. So when I talk about the body, I mean our physical incarnation here on earth, and I am including the mind. The mind is a product. Once we are in a physical body, the mind is a product of that physical body. When we die, the mind will go with our spirit. Because to me, the mind is our consciousness. It's our brain and our nervous system. Yes, it's our consciousness. I think our mind is also to be found in our energy field and our energy body. Those are all components of the mind. And I have to think about this a lot because this is my work and this is what I'm doing with the crystals. So with the Alexander technique, I am integrating a whole of the body and the mind. But once I add in the crystals, I'm working with body, mind, and energy, or body, mind, and spirit. It doesn't matter. We're always talking about this. We're talking about physical, mental, and spiritual. You can divide it up with whichever words you want. They each have their nuances, but in the end, we're talking about those three layers of our existence. So when you talk about combining the Alexander technique with the crystal work, in the crystal healing work, I'm working on the etheric realm, on the energetics. With the Alexander technique, I'm working on aligning the mental and the physical. That's why I like to do all three. Why would I leave out one of the layers if I know how to integrate all three? And of course, if you integrate two, that's a good start. So you can go and have psychotherapy and integrate mind, mental, and energetic, or you can come and have Alexander technique to integrate physical and mental, or you can come and see someone like me who tries to work with all three layers simultaneously. So I've lost the question, CANDIA.
Exactly.
To ask me. I went off on my favorite tangent.
Integrate all these three dimensions in the self, working with crystals. Yeah, that's the answer on how to be present. Well,
on how to be present, yeah. And so I think going to getting help with that is essential. We are social beings. We don't do this stuff on our own. But even if we read a book, that is a connection with another being. You're connecting with the author of the book and their thinking and their consciousness and their words of wisdom. Hopefully they're words of wisdom. And so we have many, many resources. But the thing to do to become present in the moment is just be with yourself. And one of the very, 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 very best things I ever did was when I was in my 50s, I decided to become my own best friend. Why wouldn't I? And I was just speaking to a client earlier today. I said, why are you so mean to yourself? Why are you so critical of yourself? Then she's talking to me about what's going on in her life. And she said, I'm sorry, I'm so negative. I said, bring it on. This is your space. I said, if I bumped into you at the Aeronaut and it was intermission, Aeronaut's a theater, and it was intermission and you started telling me this stuff, I'd say, stop being negative. This is your session. We are so inappropriate with ourselves. We are so mean to ourselves. We are so unfair to ourselves. If we behave that way to someone else, it would be considered abusive. And this is how we are with ourselves. So anyway.
Ourselves. Yeah. I want to ask you one last tip, advice, exercise.
Yes.
For us essentialists that we don't want to be sensual because we already are, but sometimes we get derailed, we work a lot, we're tense. So what is a good starter mineral, rock, crystal to work with? And I don't know if we could get ourselves a rose crystal that you said that it was good for starters, and what could we do with it? Because I have three rose crystals in the other room, and I want to do something.
I think that the easiest way to start with crystals is to make sure that you got a smooth crystal, you see, and just see what attracts you. The first thing is the one that attracts you.
Okay, the one that attracts.
That's the one. Okay, the one that attracts you, that's the one. Okay, so you see I can hold up this one, and it's very pretty. It's a beautiful green color. Yes. And so that attracts you, then you just use it to just use it to infuse. You infuse it. This is actually an energetic technique. Even though I'm touching my physical body here, it's actually the energy. I'll just make it so you can see the crystal at the same time. It's actually the first layer of the energy field between the physical body. So you touch the physical body, but it's actually where the crystal is the space above the physical body is what's being energized. And then that's filtering into the physical body. But then you also get the sensation of this. It doesn't feel like massage. Depending which stone you use, it's a completely different sensation. But anyway, you begin with a stone that you like. See, this is green fluorite, blue-green fluorite, technically. This is manganocalcite, this one. Look at it. Isn't that gorgeous? It's not rose quartz. It's pink, but it's manganocalcite. So I recommend a smooth stone. You can get them in a heart shape. Look, I have a heart-shaped orange calcite. So this one is for emotional balance. And I wanted to tell you earlier, when you went off to look for the rose quartz, that I actually have rose quartz hearts like this. And Neil and I, during the pandemic, we got very high blood pressure. And just by doing this with the rose quartz heart, we were able to actually measure our blood pressure coming down just by doing this. So you can actually do this to yourself. You can get like a heart-shaped crystal or a sphere, and you can actually rub it on your body. And if you're going on your chakras, like I'm on my heart chakra now, then I'll go clockwise. Go clockwise, that's best. You can even do it on your crown chakra. This is clockwise.
Like if I had the clock, like if I was a wall and I had the clock like this, not like.
Yes, that's right. Clockwise, exactly correct, in the direction of the clock. It will feel wrong if you do it in the wrong direction. Okay. But sometimes when we're scattered and our energy is like this, like then you don't feel clearly. So you got to get that to smooth down. The most important thing is do something you like.
Yes.
And, some people, they like to have a shower. Then have a shower. It doesn't matter if it's not the right time of day for a shower. Have a shower. You like to sit outside. You like to feel the sun making your body warm. I'll never forget this client back in South Africa. She'd been in a concentration camp. She was a Holocaust survivor. And it was a sunny day, and the sun was shining in onto her. She was on the Alexander table. And she said, "Oh, I love to feel the sun on my body." That taught me a lesson. That taught me about life. That taught me about sensuality, like I can't believe. So do things you like. That's how you get to be with yourself. So with the stones, choose one that you like the look of and do something that feels nice. It's as simple as that. We want to know the right way, the one that feels nice. That's the right way. What feels nice. It's a very easy standard, but very difficult for us to accomplish until we give ourselves permission.
Yes, until we give ourselves permission to do what feels good. Wonderful.
Vivien. Give ourselves permission.
Wonderful.
After our son died, and a friend of ours who had also lost a son, he said, do things you like. Do things you like.
No matter how
and I took it to heart.
The moment is, do things that you like.
Yes. Yes. Do things you like. Because sometimes we don't know what we like. Give yourself a chance to find out. Give yourself a chance to find out.
Yes.
Very important.
That's a gift to listen these words from you. Truly. Give ourselves.
And we know what we like via the senses. It's via the senses. It's via our sensuality. That is the only access.
Yes. And it's so simple. We want to study more, to get the new course, the new book, when we already know. It's in our, we already know. Since we were babies, we choose the ripe apple, not the rotten apple.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
You. And how can we know more about your work and connect with your healing sessions?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a website called crystalhealingtechniques.com. So it's just simple, the words crystalhealingtechniques.com. So that's my website. That's the easiest way to find out more about me, find out more about my work. We also have Schapera.com. That's SCHAPERA.com. We have YouTube channels. So the YouTube channel is called Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques. Ooh, I'm losing my voice. Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques is the name of the YouTube channel. We're all over the internet. We have a radio show. But if you come to crystalhealingtechniques.com, if you want to get hold of me, you can use the contact form on the website. I've written 5 different books, so you can access my books. I'm the one and only Vivien Schapera in the world. If you Google my name, Vivien, and then SCHAPERA, if you Google my name, you will get to me. There is no other Vivien Schapera. So it's very, very easy to connect with me. And I love to have people contact me and connect with me. I enjoy it tremendously. I've got students and clients all over the world now. It's true wonderful. So there's my son calling now. Sorry about that. I forgot that the phone was here with me.
Thank you so much, Vivien.
All right. Okay. Great. Thank you, CANDIA.
Yeah. And Essentialist, go connect with the one and only Vivien Schapera at www.crystalhealingtechniques.com. And you will learn more about this wonderful work with crystals and with Alexander technique. And also, if you want to know more about connecting with pleasure, please go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality at www.centrodelpoder.com. And until next time, please remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame.